This podcast is brought to you by Carvana. Buying a car shouldn't eat up your week. That's why Carvana made it convenient. Car buying that fits around your life, not the other way around. You can get pre-qualified for an auto loan in just a couple of minutes and browse thousands of quality car options, all within your terms, all online, all on your schedule. Turn car buying into a few clicks and not a full week's endeavor. Finance and buy your car at your convenience on
Carvana.
Financing subject to credit approval. Additional terms and conditions may apply.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon Prime. From streaming to shopping, Prime helps you get more out of your passions. So whether you're a fan of true crime or prefer a nail-biting novel from time to time, with services like Prime Video, Amazon Music, and fast free delivery, Prime makes it easy to get more out of whatever you're into or getting into. Visit Amazon.com/Prime to learn more.
The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
You are now entering the Stone Zone. Well, I returned this morning from Las Vegas, Nevada, where I attended the America First Ground Zero conference that was sponsored by the Gateway Pundit. The Gateway Pundit, of course, is the net-based news outlet that was probably the only place you could go during the time that I was subjected to a Soviet-style show trial in the Russian collusion hoax, when I was fighting charges that I had lied under oath in my voluntary testimony to the House Intelligence Committee. The Gateway Pundit was one of the few places you could go for accurate and honest reporting about that outrageous violation of my constitutional rights. You see, I was not charged with a crime because I did anything wrong. I was charged with a process crime in order to pressure me into testifying falsely against President Donald Trump. You see, after Robert Mueller and the Justice Department spent tens of millions of dollars and could find no evidence whatsoever of Russian collusion with Donald Trump's 2016 campaign, they decided to try to create it. You see, they wanted me to bear false witness against the president, which, of course, I refused to do. The Gateway Pundit was among the few places you could go for accurate coverage. I'll always be very grateful to Jim and Joe Hoff, the twin brothers, writing and covering news for the Gateway Pundit. Anyway, they had a great conference in Las Vegas. I was honored, along with General Michael Flynn. I think most Americans are familiar with the horrific trial that the swamp put him through, as well as the greatest mayor in New York City history, Rudy Giuliani. It was a terrific conference, and I met many great patriots. Still getting a lot of feedback from the riff I did last week regarding Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon was, of course, fired from the Trump White House in 2017, essentially for leaking self-serving stories. I'll never forget when Steve Bannon's picture appeared on the cover of Time magazine with the headline, "Trump's Brain." This is ridiculous. The man responsible for the election of Donald Trump, no matter how improbable, was Donald Trump himself. He's not managed. He's not packaged. He's not scripted. He is his own man. And it was his own audacious strategy, his own decision to make illegal immigration a major national centerpiece issue of his campaign, for example, that elected Donald Trump. The truth is that when Paul Manafort left Donald Trump's campaign, he left behind a complete and very detailed written campaign plan. His successor, Steve Bannon, merely implemented that plan. But people say to me, what's your beef with Bannon? I mean, you and Steve are both Trump supporters. You're both MAGA, right? Well, my beef with him is really very simple. Steve Bannon testified to the House Intelligence Committee in 2018, around the same time that I did, under oath, and he was asked by Congressman Adam Schiff whether he'd ever talked to Roger Stone about WikiLeaks, Julian Assange, or the allegedly stolen emails. He said, and I quote, "No, never." When asked by Adam Schiff, on no occasion, Bannon said, "No, on no occasion. Never." That was, of course, the truth. You can imagine how surprised I was when Steve Bannon showed up at my trial in Washington, D.C. as a surprise witness for Robert Mueller. Kind of swept to the witness stand, dressed all in black, kind of like a fat Johnny Cat, of course, wouldn't look me in the eye. And when asked the exact same question, did you ever talk to Roger Stone about WikiLeaks, Julian Assange, or these allegedly stolen emails? He said yes. Stone brought it up in every conversation we had in 2016. In fact, he went on to say, I considered Stone to be our access point to WikiLeaks. That is known as perjury, a lie. Two sworn statements, which, as Jonathan Turley pointed out, or the George Washington University law professor, pointed out for the New York Post, were direct contradicting each other. So that's the beginning of my problems with Stinky Steve. My other problem with him, quite frankly, is his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Bannon seeks Epstein out, according to the New York Post, seen multiple times at Epstein's palatial New York home. Also, according to other news outlets, flies to meet Epstein in Paris. Why would anyone associate with a man who at that point had been convicted of sex crimes in Florida? Former Bannon aide Sam Nunberg told me that Jeffrey Epstein had agreed to sponsor Steve Bannon's ongoing political activities. And we know that Bannon filmed 15 hours of an interview with Jeffrey Epstein. I believe the purpose of this planned documentary was to try to rehabilitate Epstein after Epstein was prosecuted for minor sex crimes in Florida. Now, in 2019, it was the Trump administration that would come back and charge Jeffrey Epstein with one count of child sex trafficking and a second count of conspiring to engage in child sex trafficking. So my question is a simple one. Why has Steve Bannon not released the 15 hours of video he has? I think the answer is because it was designed to try to rehabilitate Epstein. The idea of Steve Bannon running for president, which of course he leaked himself and then says he has no comment on the leak. Well, that's a ludicrous joke. Anyway, President Trump, of course, heading to Alaska on August 15th to meet with Vladimir Putin and presumably President Zelensky of Ukraine. Now, if I were Vladimir Putin, right now I would be carefully poring over the art of the deal. I know this about Donald Trump. He's not holding a meeting unless he knows what the results of that meeting are likely to be. So I'm going to assume, knowing him for 50 years, that he has the framework of a peace deal. He has certainly been living up to the promise of being a pro-peace commander-in-chief, seamlessly reversing decades of foreign policies that have only exacerbated conflicts throughout the world. So Trump helped negotiate a ceasefire between Thailand and Cambodia, put together a peace deal between Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo, ended violence between Pakistan and India. This list goes on and on. To me, it means that he well deserves the Nobel Peace Prize. That, of course, is decided by a Norwegian-based globalist elitist committee. I think it's unlikely that they will give him the prize, but it seems to me the Russians have already kind of signaled what's going to happen this week. They tentatively agreed to terms to stop the war in Ukraine, according to press reports. That whole war is a folly that was created due to the aggressive NATO expansion by the Biden administration. See, when the Russians agreed to the reunification of East and West Germany, the United States agreed in the Budapest Memorandum signed by Secretary of State James A. Baker, and later on in the Minsk Accords signed by the Bush administration, not to push Ukraine into NATO, which really is defined as not mounting NATO missiles, American missiles, paid for by U.S. taxpayers, on the ground in Ukraine, pointed at Russia. Sorry, but I don't see this as different than the situation in America in 1962, when the Russians mounted Russian ICBM missiles on the ground in Cuba, 90 minutes from our shore. And President Putin has made it clear from the beginning that was his line in the sand. So when President Trump ends the war between Russia and Ukraine, there will be little doubt that he will be among the most successful presidents in American history in terms of peacemaking. He is writing the diplomatic playbook that other presidents will follow for generations to come. A Nobel Peace Prize may not be enough for Trump. Perhaps they should put a spot on Mount Rushmore for him. I think that would be just as fitting. But let's kind of go through this. He gets a ceasefire between the radical Houthis and the U.S. That's it in Yemen. Back in May 6th of 2025, he declared an end to U.S. strikes on the Houthis, announcing an immediate ceasefire brokered by Oman that had halted the Red Sea shipping lanes. Then, as I said, the Declaration of Principles in June of 2025 between the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda, this so-called Washington Accord ended one of the bloodiest conflicts in the history of the world. More recently, a peace agreement between Armenia and Azerbaijan. Trump hosted the Armenian prime minister and the president of Azerbaijan at the White House just last week, where they signed a landmark peace declaration ending that conflict and establishing a U.S.-controlled transit corridor called the Trump Route for International Peace and Prosperity, or TRIP. That's one thing I love about Donald Trump. He always puts his name on his accomplishments. Then, of course, there is the ceasefire that he got between Thailand and Cambodia. This took place in late 2025 after deadly border clashes. Thailand and Cambodia, thanks to Donald Trump interceding, agreed on a ceasefire right after the president's intervention, although some sources note that official confirmation of the U.S. mediation is unverified. Multiple credible sources say it was Donald Trump who brokered the deal. It is amazing to me that on top of all of this, the India-Pakistan ceasefire claim, where Trump purposely actually stated that he had de-escalated the tensions, even though official sources from India have attempted to deny that. I tend to believe President Donald Trump. Then, of course, there is the Israel-Syria de-escalation. This is reported by various statements from our own envoys, Steve Witkoff and Tom Barrack, our ambassador to Turkey, although there was no formal agreement by the parties involved. And then, of course, he's got a Israel-Iran ceasefire, which has so far held steady. Again, I think extraordinarily fragile. But there is no greater title that history can bestow than that of peacemaker. Trump ran as the peace candidate, and he is delivering in spades across the board. Now, the war between Russia and Ukraine is not over yet, and it won't be over until the ink is dry on the agreements. But I know Donald Trump. I've known a long time. I don't think he would be heading to Alaska unless he'd had the framework of a deal. A Russian statesman specifically said the United States had made a proposal which the Russians found acceptable. So it may be premature to say that peace is at hand, but it certainly sounds to me like Donald Trump is about to achieve his greatest breakthrough when it comes to world peace. The American people are a little shocked. You see, we're not used to political figures actually delivering on the pledges they make during their presidential campaigns. But Donald Trump is not a politician. He will never be a politician. He's the leader of a political reform movement, and it is having its impact in our foreign policy as he, I think, positions himself for the Nobel Peace Prize. Even if they don't give it to him, the American people completely get it. I'm Roger Stone. You're tuned in to the Stone Zone here on the Red Apple Audio Networks. Whatever you do, don't touch that dial because we'll be right back.
The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Running a business comes with a lot of what-ifs. But luckily, there's a simple answer to them. Shopify. It's the commerce platform behind millions of businesses, including Thrive Cosmetics and Momofuku, and it'll help you with everything you need. From website design and marketing to boosting sales and expanding operations, Shopify can get the job done and make your dream a reality. Turn those what-ifs into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
And we're back in the Stone Zone here on the Red Apple Audio Networks. Last Friday, Attorney General Pam Bondi named Ed Martin, Deputy Attorney General, as the special prosecutor to investigate mortgage fraud allegations regarding both Senator Adam Schiff and New York Attorney General Letitia James. James is being accused of falsely listing her Norfolk, Virginia-based home as her primary legal residence in order to unlawfully receive a lower mortgage rate and a lower insurance rate. Now, it's obviously a problem because under the New York state law and Constitution, if a Virginia residence is her principal legal residence, she would be ineligible to be New York Attorney General. In those documents, she also said that her daughter would make it her principal residence, but actually, thanks to the investigative journalism of Sam Antar and Joel Gilbert, both of whom visited the Norfolk-based home, neither Letitia James nor her daughter are living there as required by law under the mortgage. She also, on another occasion, in order to qualify for a certain lower interest federal mortgage for investment properties, claimed that an apartment complex that she owned, which was required to have under 5 units, specifically 4 units, had 4 units. The problem is that, once again, it had 5 units. These are crimes for which other people have been prosecuted and found guilty. Adam Schiff allegedly pulled a similar scheme. He claimed that his condo in Burbank, California, and his home in Potomac, Maryland, were both his primary legal residence. Therefore, he got a tax break in both states, and he got lower mortgage rates and lower insurance rates. It's interesting to note that former U.S. Attorney Preet Bharara put out a statement defending Adam Schiff, denying the charges, saying that they had been debunked. They haven't been debunked. And saying that this was somehow payback for the fact that Senator Adam Schiff had opposed special counsel Ed Martin's appointment as U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia. It's ironic that Preet Bharara is going to have the time to represent Adam Schiff because my sources tell me that former U.S. Attorney Preet Bharara is among those who will be brought in front of a grand jury shortly to discuss their own role in the Russian collusion hoax. It has been accurately reported that Attorney General Pam Bondi has already appointed a prosecutor, and a grand jury has been impaneled to begin hearing the evidence based on the disclosures by the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, that have completely exposed Barack Obama, Vice President Joe Biden, National Security Advisor Susan Rice, Director of National Intelligence James Clapper, Attorney General, Acting Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, Special Prosecutor Robert Mueller, Hillary Clinton, Don Podesta, and many others. My friends, I think justice is coming. Clearly, it is coming for Letitia James. Remember her? She's the one who said no one is above the law. I think she's going to find out very shortly that that includes her. Listening to the Stone Zone, whatever you do, don't go away because we'll be right back.
The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back in the Stone Zone. Here we talk politics, and more politics. I think unless you've been under a rock someplace, you're unaware of the fact that several weeks ago, Elon Musk and Donald Trump had a public falling out. Musk posted a couple of attacks on Trump that he later apologized for and withdrew. I think it is time for the Make America Great movement and Elon Musk to mend fences for the greater good of saving the country and winning the midterm elections. There is no question that Musk's assistance to Trump was of great value in the 2024 election. It's also important to note that once Musk bought Twitter, changed it over to be called X, but made the decision to release all of the proof that intelligence agents from the previous administration were working hand in glove with executives at Twitter to censor people online who questioned the outcome of the 2020 election or questioned the efficiency and effectiveness of the COVID-19 vaccination or questioned whether Hunter Biden's shocking laptop contents were in fact Russian disinformation. Once Elon Musk did that, of course, he painted a target. Suddenly, Musk and his many companies were the target of 9 federal investigations. This week, it was revealed that ex-CEO Elon Musk had given $15 million in late June to entities supporting President Trump and the Republican Party, including 2 $5 million donations to super PACs for the Republican House and Senate candidates, as well as a $5 million donation to the pro-Trump super PAC MAGA Inc. This was after Musk publicly floated the idea of a centrist America party, a new third party, that could potentially split the vote of voters with common sense in next year's midterm elections. Now, as I noted, Musk made several offensive and petty public statements towards President Trump after Musk publicly opposed the Big Beautiful Bill, President Trump's signature legislation that included the greatest, largest single tax cut on the American people, did away with the tax on tips, and ended the taxation of Social Security benefits for 88% of Americans receiving Social Security. Musk, as you may recall, stated without any proof that Trump was in the Epstein files. That's not true. We have since learned the Epstein files were corrupted by the Biden-era officials, and that Trump's administration has taken multiple measures to get accurate information about Epstein into the public eye. Despite the Democrats' public posturing, a Democrat judge in Florida has refused to make public the grand jury proceedings against Jeffrey Epstein in Florida in the early 20s, and a federal judge in New York has refused thus far to make the grand jury proceedings from 2019, in which Epstein was charged with child sex trafficking and a second count of conspiring to engage in child sex trafficking public. So while the Democrats talk about their desire for full disclosure and keep implying falsely that there's something in the Epstein records embarrassing to Donald Trump, well, I know better. I hope all of this information does become public, because all you're going to learn is how many times Bill Clinton went to Epstein's Island. It's at least 3 times based on the sworn testimony of Virginia Roberts Giuffre and other plaintiffs who sued Epstein over his exploitation of them. And then, of course, the 26 times that Bill Clinton was on Epstein's plane, the Lolita Express. Anyway, over the past several weeks, Musk has stopped bashing President Trump, and he's stopped talking about forming a new third party. After one of Musk's top DOJ lieutenants, Edward Coristine was attacked by a vicious mob of thugs in Washington, D.C. over the weekend, Musk came out and formally supported President Trump's plan to federalize our nation's capital, to take over control of the police department, and to deploy the National Guard in order to restore law and order. Quote, if D.C. doesn't get its act together and quickly, we will have no choice but to take federal control of the city and run this city the way it should be run, as well as putting criminals on notice that they're not going to get away with it anymore. That was what President Trump wrote in a Truth Social post. A few days ago, Musk then wrote in response to Trump's post, a gang of about a dozen young men tried to assault a woman in her car at night in D.C., a Doge team member saw what was happening, ran to defend her, and was severely beaten to the point of concussion, but he did save the woman's life. It is time to federalize the District of Columbia. So it's clear that Musk is coming to a sentence after his flame out earlier this year. Now, I value Elon Musk and what he has done for free speech in this country. I was very active on Twitter. I had 980,000 followers until 2017 when, without explanation, I was banned on the website. I would subsequently be banned on Facebook, Instagram, as well as YouTube. By the way, they never give you any reason why you're being banned. You're being banned because they say so. You're being banned because you expose uncomfortable truths or opinions that they're not comfortable with. I never really thought that I would be restored on Twitter. By then it was X. I simply went online and filled out a form requesting that I be reinstated. I'm very grateful to Elon Musk for the fact that he restored my X account. You can find me at Roger J. Stone Jr. That's Roger J. Stone Jr. I'm verified there. By the way, there are dozens of Roger Stones on X, but there's only one real Roger Stone. That's where you can find out every day who's going to be on the Stone Zone program that day. I'm also continue to be banned on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. In all honesty, I don't really miss it. I think that trust in Musk's judgment is being restored, and his importance in the next elections cannot really be understated. Musk's acquisition of X stopped big tech from censoring Trump throughout the 2024 election cycle, and then his infusion of hundreds of millions of dollars into Trump's campaign helped build a grassroots infrastructure that rivaled the Democrats for the first time in decades. Even though the Democrat Party support is in the toilet, and radicals like New York City mayoral candidate Zoran the Ayatollah Mamdani are becoming the face of the party, the 2026 midterms will not be a cakewalk for Republicans, regardless of how strong and vibrant our economy will be. It's already strong. Think how much stronger it will be once President Trump finally gets an interest rate cut from the Federal Reserve. Unfortunately, our current Federal Reserve Chairman, Jerome Powell, refused to use the same metrics that he used the last four times the Federal Reserve cut rates. Today, the rate of inflation and the rate of unemployment are either lower than or at the same level as the last four times that the Federal Reserve cut rates. That's because the last two times they cut rates were to try to benefit first Joe Biden and then Kamala Harris. Today, Powell insists that he can't cut rates because he's unsure of the impact of the new tariff deals that President Donald Trump has negotiated. Well, we know the impact. They told us that inflation would soar. Inflation remains low. They said the dollar would be unstable. The dollar remains strong. They said the stock market would crash. We have a record Dow. If there is any negative impact of our new tariff revenues, which is highly unlikely because in the month of June, it was the first time in 15 years that the United States government actually ran a surplus, meaning more money came in than the government was paying out. Well, they could always adjust interest rates then. No, I think Jerome Powell and those on the Federal Reserve continue to act politically in an obvious effort to stop the Trump economy from booming. 2026 is still going to be tough. I was on Laura Loomer's program the other night on Rumble, where she flatly predicted the Republicans would lose the House. I mean, as a veteran of 50 years in American politics and a veteran of 13 national presidential campaigns, I would point out that in politics, a week is a lifetime. And that no one can predict today what will happen in the upcoming off-year elections. But this much is true. Without President Trump on the ballot helping pull the Republicans towards victory, Republican candidates will have to stand on their own merits. And oftentimes, in some places, those merits are not particularly exceptional. Republicans will have to present candidates with dynamism necessary to captivate the voting public in order to win in 2026. Now, this will be a difficult proposition because the Republican establishment has not yet learned the lessons of MAGA. President Trump is still dogged by a fifth column of Republicans who want to put him in a box and limit his success. This was seen very recently by the Republican Senate leadership's refusal to allow President Trump to put forward recess appointments, halting the president's ability to put key appointees into key positions within the federal government. The swamp realizes that personnel is policy, and they will slow roll appointments and nominations as much as possible in order to grind President Trump down through the tedious process of Washington, D.C. rulemaking minutia. Even today, Senator Chuck Schumer of New York refuses to acquiesce in the appointment of Jay Clayton, the former head of the SEC, to serve as the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York. No one can question Clayton's qualifications for this position, given his previous service both as a private attorney and as a public official as the head of the Securities and Exchange Commission. It's a perfect example of the deep state swamp politics that paralyze the appointments process. Too many Republicans remain content to be out of power where they can talk a big game, raise millions of dollars for their reelection campaigns, blame the Democrats at every turn, but shirk the responsibility of actually governing. Despite his faults, Elon Musk is not one of those individuals. As impetuous as he may be at times, Musk earnestly yearns to take a sledgehammer to the reviled Washington, D.C. status quo. Theoretically, Musk is the perfect person to be the George Soros of the MAGA right, a position that Musk once relished before his recent public falling out with Trump. When fully activated, Musk can force the Republican funding and organizational apparatus to run a sleek, modernized, data-driven operation in the midterms that the party would otherwise resist. So I say it's time for MAGA to mend fences with Elon Musk for the greater good of saving the country and winning the midterm elections. Democrats regularly put personal squabbles aside during election time for the betterment of pushing their radical agenda, and Republicans must show the same level of unity with Elon Musk if they want to restore America's greatness. Musk's drive, his competence, his vision can prevent the arrogant political hacks of the Republican establishment from exercising the mismanagement that they are famous for. You're listening to the Stone Zone. I'm Roger Stone. Don't go away because we'll be right back.
The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
The Twisted Tale of Amanda Knox is coming to Hulu. In 2007, Amanda Knox was studying abroad in Italy. She had no idea her dream would turn into a nightmare. Inspired by the actual events of her wrongful conviction and 15-year fight for freedom, watch the new Hulu original series, The Twisted Tale of Amanda Knox, on August 20th. Streaming on Hulu and Hulu on Disney Plus for bundle subscribers. Terms apply.
Welcome back into the Stone Zone right here on the Red Apple Audio Networks. Well, Vice President J.D. Vance confirmed in an interview on Monday that a lot of people will be indicted over the Russian collusion hoax. That, of course, was the conspiracy by Obama's administration, later carried on under Joe Biden, to frame President Donald Trump as a Russian agent in order to prevent him from winning the presidency. And then after that failed, to sabotage his presidency and then attempt to remove him from the presidency. And then subsequently weaponized in an effort to bankrupt him, keep him off the ballot in all 50 states, put him in jail, and I think, at least in 2 incidents, to actually shoot and kill him. See, I see all of this as a continuing seditious conspiracy. I think all of these events are related. If you examine them, they were all executed and orchestrated by the exact same people. We're talking about miscreants like Norm Eisen and the most corrupt federal prosecutor in U.S. history, Andrew Weissman. That guy got his start covering up mob murders in Brooklyn, moved to destroy the Enron Corporation that he prosecuted for corruption that did not exist. His convictions in that case, which he keeps pointing to as a gold standard, were reversed by the U.S. Supreme Court 9-0. Then, of course, he destroyed Arthur Andersen, their accounting firm, costing hundreds of people their jobs and sending people to jail only to have them released when their convictions were reversed. Weissman was the de facto head of the Mueller investigation. Mueller himself, as we now know, was non compos mentis. He proved that in his nearly incoherent testimony before Congress. That's because after the release of Mueller's final report, which Attorney General Bill Barr, one of the few good things he did, declared there was no evidence of Russian collusion or WikiLeaks collaboration, Weissman sent Mueller to testify before the Congress, which was meant to breathe life back into the Mueller investigation conclusions, but backfired tragically when Mueller was virtually incoherent. Now it is publicly reported that Mueller is institutionalized in a home because of his mental deterioration, which tells me that he'll probably use an insanity defense when he's charged with seditious conspiracy and treason. Vice President Vance probably said it best when he said, if you look at what Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence, and Kash Patel, the FBI director, have revealed in the last couple of weeks, I don't know how anybody can look at that and say there was not an aggressive violation of the law. I absolutely think they broke the law, and you're going to see a lot of people get indicted for that. Vance is, of course, correct. Even before the Trump administration started declassifying and releasing Russiagate documents, it was already obvious that individuals like former CIA Director John Brennan, who has, by the way, reportedly fled the country, is holed up in Austria, where MSNBC, I'm told, has put together a makeshift studio for him so it can appear that he's still in the country. Former FBI Director James Comey and former National Security Advisor Susan Rice were guilty of capital offenses. What is the certified punishment for treason again? But now that the full scope of the seditious conspiracy is understood because of the disclosures by both Gabbard and Patel, it's clear that this was ordered from the very top, that the entire operation was approved by Hillary Rodham Clinton. We have absolute proof of that in an email between her top aides, but was also hatched in the Oval Office by President Barack Hussein Obama himself. It can no longer be denied. It is now time for these people to see justice. Either we have a justice system in which there is one standard, or we still have a two-tiered justice system. I was subjected to completely bogus charges in an effort to pressure me to testify falsely against President Donald Trump, which I resolutely refused to do. In this case, however, Comey, Brennan, Rice, Clapper, Hillary Clinton, John Podesta, Robbie Mook, Robert Mueller, Andrew Weissman, and many others actively engaged in treasonous activity. They were involved in a seditious conspiracy. And frankly, I can't wait until 29 heavily armed FBI agents in full SWAT gear and brandishing fully automatic M4 assault weapons storm their homes at 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm Roger Stone. Thanks for joining us today in the Stone Zone. Until tomorrow, God bless you and Godspeed.
Thanks for listening to The Stone Zone with Roger Stone. You can hear The Stone Zone with Roger Stone weeknights at 8 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode, so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?